Welcome back to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, your weekly blueprint for explosive success. I'm Carlos Alvarez, full-time successful Amazon seller and organizer of the largest Amazon seller meetup group in the world. Let's do this. Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I will be your host for the show. In today's episode, I am very excited to be doing a back-to-back solo episode. So last week, I released a solo episode with no guest, and here we are again. No guest today, just a topic near and dear to my heart that I want to share with all of you that are listening. So today's topic is going to be about books. And instead of just rambling on about the importance of books, which anybody here that knows me knows, I'm just a voracious reader. I'm talking about 6 to 8 books a month, combination of Audible, Kindle, paperback, just a voracious reader, and have been as far back as I can remember. So I've lost track of how many books I've read. But instead of rambling on into all that, in today's episode, I wanted to share the 5 most impactful books on my business. So again, these are the 5 most impactful books in my business. That's not to say that there's not a ton of other books out there that had an impact on my business, because there most definitely is. For those of you listening to this episode too, you're going to hear me reference the Entrepreneurs Book Club, which is as the title describes, it is a club, free, 100% free. Easiest way to find us is on Facebook, is a Facebook group for Entrepreneurs Book Club. And what we do is we pick a book every month. Alfred, Ali Sace, and just a lot of other amazing people in the group. Alfred usually puts out a poll. We all vote on what book we're going to read that month. And then, and many of us read more than just that book each month. But at the end of that month, we get together and we jump on Zoom and we discuss that book. Today, actually, I couldn't make the Zoom, but today we just finished doing the discussion on the book called The Dip. So an amazing book if you haven't read it. But there's been many books in that Entrepreneurs Book Club that we have gone over and that have had an impact in my personal and professional life. So I wanted to say that there's plenty more books besides the 5 that I'm going to share, but these were the 5 most impactful books in my business. And definitely there was some spillover where it definitely had an impact in my personal life, because let's face it, the better or however your business is doing, that is going to have a direct impact on how you're doing personally. So let's start from the top. I'd say, let me see if I have this in order really quick, because I have this written down in front of me, so I can also see how long this episode's going to kind of keep it brief while also not losing track of what those episodes are. So I'm sorry, what those books are. So yeah, I have these in order of the most important. Number 1 for me is going to be The Founder's Dilemma. I happen to remember the name of this author, and it's Noam Wasserman. And the reason The Founder's Dilemma, well, what The Founder's Dilemma is about is, and I'm hoping you go out and get this book and read it, but The Founder's Dilemma it has to do with all of those mistakes that we make with the best of intentions. Hopefully we're having the best of intentions going into a business with somebody, but all of those mistakes we make in ignorance, but with the best of intentions in starting a business, especially starting a business with partners. So many of you that know me, that may be listening to the show, know that many of my woes and many of the problems I had, my growing pains throughout my different companies have been either, I'm going to say, poor choices in partners. Not that there was anything wrong with them personally. We just were not a good fit as business partners, and just all around poor planning on my part into how a business should be structured, accountability. One thing, several instances in this book of The Founder's Dilemma had me pulling over on the side of the road when I first listened to it as an audiobook. I want to say it was like a CD, actually, when I was listening to it. It was like pre-Audible. But I pulled over several times reading this book because it just felt like almost teary-eyed, like, wow, this person is in the back seat talking about me. Like this could not have been written, like all the examples that he gives in the book of having done it wrong was really just exactly what I did repeatedly. So it was extremely impactful. I would put this as such an important book if you're starting a business, and especially if you're starting with partners, that it should almost be required reading. Like, what's that thing? If you were ever the president, what would you do? So if I was ever like in charge of, people registering to start a business, I would make this almost like required reading. The one thing in this book that really was the most impactful to me had to do with, I'm going to call it C-level roles. So you get in a business with a few other business partners, and you guys just start giving each other C-level roles like COO, CEO, CMO, CFO, all of that stuff. And then what happens is, like in my case, it wasn't that our businesses failed, in spite of the fact that we were just ill-equipped, didn't have the education to fulfill these roles adequately. The businesses still succeeded in the sense of the money it was bringing in. And that money, that success actually is what did us in. We needed to start hiring people. We needed to start creating processes. And we started having to think about things like cash flow. And one of the first parts that happened there was, we bring in an investor, and they were immediately like, who is this clown as your CFO? Like, we can't have that. Like, we're going to bring in money, but we got to put somebody there who really knows what they're doing. So we had to go to our partner who was doing all those late nights with us in the beginning and pretty much say, hey, you're fired, like, from that role. So instead of doing that the right way, we said, yeah, but don't worry. We're going to just create this whole other role to really make the person feel good. And like, don't worry, we'll make you the CEO instead. And the person's like, oh, okay, well, as long as I'm getting that. But you know what? The person was not the best fit for the job. So I say all that to say that the Founder's Dilemma really drills home like what to do in that situation. And the hint here is you don't have to have all the roles filled. So highly suggest reading that book. Next most impactful book for me, and this one's pretty much tied with number 3, but I'll do one at a time. And that's the E-Myth Revisited. I believe that's by Michael Gerber. I don't have it open in front of me, but this book was crazy impactful for me because this was also me. In this book, well, the book pretty much explains to you, regardless of where you stand on the subject, the importance of realizing the 3 different roles in a business. And I hope I'm getting this right here. Like, I didn't have these like made out notes before this episode, but it had to do with the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, and that all 3 roles are needed in the business. And the example they give in the book is a baker that makes these amazing, I believe it was pies. And everyone said, you need to start a business. These pies are amazing. You'd have a line out the door. She allows herself to be convinced that she needs to get into business doing pies. Previously, she just baked pies whenever she felt like it from her home, and she'd make it for her family on her time. So many of you probably see where this is going who have started a business or have started a local brick and mortar business. And that is, there's a lot more than baking pies that goes into a pie baking business, like ordering supplies, the ovens, payroll, cash registers, merchant accounts. The list goes on and on and on. And by the end of the book, not only was like nobody showing up in the store, because when you had the store, you needed to do marketing. And all of the friends that were like, oh, you should really open a pie business, they were still waiting for those free pies she'd bake on the side. So by the end of this, she has no personal life. She's there before the sun comes up, heating up the ovens, and she's there long after the sun has gone down, cleaning the ovens for the next day. She barely gets to see her family. It's really not making that much money, and her quality life has tanked. And I think most damaging here is she lost all her desire for baking pies. She just wants nothing to do with baking pies. And obviously baking pies here is, apply this as if it's your business that you're passionate about starting. So it just snuffed out her entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. So E-Myth Revisited really goes into identifying what role you are in that and perhaps hiring the rest of those other roles. Like in her case, she was a fantastic technician. She baked the pies, but she had zero managerial skills, zero desire to learn how to manage other people or manage a business. And she just didn't like it. She wasn't good at it. So you can't have a business with no management. And then finally, even if she would have gotten that one store to like break even or make a couple dollars, that entrepreneurial aspect is also needed, because the entrepreneur is like, well, this is one store. How do we processize this? How do we turn this into a franchise? Like, how do we get bigger? How do we create, innovate? So it helps you identify business opportunities a lot better. And it also helps you clearly see your role and where the potential role of a business partner could be. So Founder's Dilemma, E-Myth Revisited, that's 1 and 2. Like I said a second ago, this next book, this third one, huge, major game changer in my life and my professional life and my personal life, and was really just neck and neck with E-Myth Revisited for number 2. But we're gonna put her in at number 3. This one's by Chris Ducker, my mentor from afar, or coach from afar back in the days, who I just give a ton of credit to my success as a business person. And Chris Ducker created this book called Virtual Freedom. This is another book that I wish if I had that. If you were the president, what would you do scenario? This is another book that I just wish I was in some kind of position of authority, and I could say, you must read this before you start a business, period. You just have to read it. So Founder's Dilemma, E-Myth Revisited, and now Virtual Freedom. What Virtual Freedom does, or Virtual Freedom is basically the foundation of creating and working with efficiently virtual teams. It doesn't mean that this is the only way to successfully work with virtual teams. Like, there's other brilliant people out there. There's a good friend of mine, Nathan Hirsch from Outsource School. He has a very amazing approach towards building virtual teams. Highly suggest, by the way, anybody that's interested in building a virtual team to definitely, obviously, read this book, Virtual Freedom, but also to check out Outsource School for sure. It's got to be like my best purchase this year. And I'm probably going to do an entire episode later in the year dedicated to just Virtual Freedom. But what Virtual Freedom does, besides communicate with you how to go about creating a virtual team, what it does is it helps you identify who are the first hire or hires and what that person's skill set or sets should be that you hire. I notice a lot, and I did this too, was you notice that, I really hate doing the video editing. And let's say you didn't sub it out and you find yourself up late at night doing video editing and it's not your thing. You immediately think, well, I need to hire a video editor. And you're a new business. Video editors are not that cheap, especially quality video editors. Like, for example, I have an amazing, just becoming a friend, amazing person on my team named Khan, who's a video editor. And it's definitely not an entry-level position. So you immediately think, well, I just want to get that off my plate and let me go ahead and just hire a video editor. And then you look at what a competent video editor will cost, and you're just like, I can't do that yet. And then you go back to saying, I'm just going to do the video editing myself. So I hope that was a good example. But what Virtual Freedom really drilled home is that you should first create 4 lists. And those lists should be everything you love to do in your business, everything you hate to do in your business, everything you do to manage your business, and everything you do to grow your business. And once you've fleshed out these 4 lists, what I suggest doing, and I think Chris suggested this too, but don't quote me on this, is to go in there and discover everything that is sales and strategic. And take that off, because you're going to keep that close to home. That's like extremely critical in your business always, but especially when you're first starting off. Everything else is fair game. Everything else is something that you can totally processize and take off your plate. What I like to do in the next step, which isn't in the book, is to go to each one of them and assign an hourly, like a time value to each one of them. Like, this is a 5-minute task, 15 hour, 2 hours, and then the frequency. So it might be an hour a week, 4 hours a month. And then I go a step further and I assign what is the skill set that's needed here. And it never fails. Every time I do this and I still do this for every new business, because the act of sitting down and writing out these lists jogs your memory. So every time I do this, I see that one of the first virtual assistants that a person should hire, and it served me well, is a general virtual assistant. So that just happens to be the person that's probably the most affordable, but the most impactful in your business. And whether the person realizes it or not, they're pretty much being secretly groomed to be an eventual project manager that will probably be one of the highest paid people in your business, depending on how the relationship goes and the grasp that this person has in your company. So I think having 6 specialist virtual assistants without a general virtual assistant that can act as a buffer, help you with your calendar and all this other stuff, is just a recipe for disaster. So Founder's Dilemma, E-Myth Revisited, Virtual Freedom was number 3. The 4th one is Blue Ocean Strategy. This one is, and I don't remember the author here. I'm trying to pull it up as we go. So the authors, they're saying, the author of Blue Ocean Strategy is W. Chan Kim and Renee. This is more of a preference, although I think it makes a ton of sense. And Blue Ocean Strategy, the opposite of Red Ocean Strategy, which is not really a strategy. And to apply that to in a way that you understand, I'm going to take it, since this is an Amazon podcast, let's talk about private label products and a Me Too product versus a differentiated or highly differentiated product, either one. So the Me Too product that, you just saw using one of a bazillion different tools that are out there, and that told you, well, this thing sold for $25, it was under 2 pounds, yada, 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 that really lame criteria out there for sourcing products. But you went by that and you saw, wow, there's only like 5 people with the same product. If I'm the 6th one, this is my cut of sales, and you're good with that, right? Which I'm not, to be clear, but let's say you're good with that. You are entering a red ocean, and that red from the ocean is coming from like the blood that is drawn during battle, and that battle is your PPC. So the more competitors there are on this Me Too product, the less profit there's going to be, the more expensive PPC is going to be, the more likelihood for listing sabotage, the more likelihood for people, using a lot of black hat strategies that you may not be comfortable with to rank, to get reviews, all of that. So it's just highly competitive, and that competitiveness in this analogy draws blood during the battle you're doing to achieve, top of page 1 position, and that creates that red ocean. Blue Ocean Strategy goes into showing you how to showing you how to identify a blue ocean. So showing you, taking it to Amazon private label, once you grasp the power of a blue ocean, meaning there's no fighting going in there. You've kind of created this thing or this area for you to only have to compete against yourself, meaning your PPC is going to be lower. Using the same Amazon analogy, your PPC is going to be lower. 5 reviews is enough because that's 5 more than what anybody has. It's much easier to rank. Your profit margin's much higher. It's just a much more preferable position to be in overall, in that blue ocean all to yourself. So let's say that you were selling French presses, and there's this one, generic plain French press that like has a bazillion pages on Amazon that everybody's selling. But let's say that you went in and put this ergonomic grip. You did something a little wicked with the handle. You maybe got a little licensing agreement for Hello Kitty, or I don't know, like Game of Thrones. You put a non-slip bottom. You did something crazy with your filter, making it easier to clean. Whatever the case may be, like these things that you did to differentiate yourself, if you've done it successfully, or if you've done it enough, that will have created a blue ocean for you to where you're only competing against yourself. So I think having a blue ocean strategy in your businesses is extremely, extremely important. Another example of how I practice this, I guess in a personal way, and then it has wound up just being an extremely rewarding kind of like lifestyle or just approach to things, is everybody now is kind of like online, and not just because of COVID. Before that, like everyone's online. No one, create a Facebook group for Amazon, do everything online. I took a totally different approach, and this wasn't premeditated, and I decided to create a meetup group, which is in person, much harder, bigger time investment, but it allowed me to grow a community of just more people I now call friend from that community than I've ever had total in my life prior. It's allowed me to really grow a side of my business that I just really didn't think I was going to grow much, in a way that has proved a million times more rewarding than had I just, gone on Facebook groups and posted and hoped somebody that Facebook allowed to see my post saw it and wanted to work with me. So it's allowed me to do that. And that blue ocean has allowed me to further drill down into the blue ocean and create what you're going to be hearing a lot from me in the very near future, which is the Wizards of Ecom, which is like a church of Ecom, a location for people to meet and learn e-commerce. So Blue Ocean Strategy, extremely powerful. So first four: Founder's Dilemma, E-Myth Revisited, Virtual Freedom, Blue Ocean Strategy. And the final one on my list, some of you might guess it, this was episode number 3. Show you how impactful this was. I decided to do an entire episode of this podcast, which is episode number 3. The episode itself, I believe, is it's called Amazon Customer Service and How to Hug Your Haters. So the 5th book on this list would be Hug Your Haters by Baer. And I think this book has allowed me to create a part of my business and see a part of my business differently, that in turn allowed me to treat it as a profit source where other people treat it as just a pain in their butt, something they feel like is holding them back. And that area is customer service. So Hug Your Haters it taught me, in my case, I had been doing the Hug Your Hater approach prior to Hug Your Hater, so I don't think it's fair to say it taught me. But what it did is it validated for me the approach of hugging your haters, online, in person, wherever the case may be. And it goes into an approach on how to deal with this in pretty much every environment, which is pretty critical. So even what I'm about to tell you, it's not like, oh, that's what he said. It's pretty much just hug your haters or turn the other cheek, blah, blah, blah. I'm not into that. Whatever you're thinking, this is not that. This is a playbook on how you can have a simple customer service approach for any scenario, meaning in person or online, that will also turn into a profitable revenue stream. So you're almost weaponizing customer service, and it's in a way that is going to make it profitable for you and get you more reviews. Just an extremely powerful approach towards customer service, and it's in a league of its own. This book, I've read everything I can get my hands on customer service. This one is from our lifetime. It's very actionable, and it's a real eye opener on how to handle this in your business in a way that'll just bring people back and make you more money. So top 5: Founder's Dilemma, E-Myth Revisited, Virtual Freedom, Blue Ocean Strategy, and Hug Your Haters by Baer. I really hope you take the time, if you've not read some of these books, to read them. I'd love to hear your feedback on them. So make sure you jump in our Amazon group chat on Telegram, which is amazongroupchat.com. and let me know what you thought. Once you join it, I'll even pass you through onto our Entrepreneurs Book Club chat. You can also find our Entrepreneurs Book Club on Facebook at Entrepreneurs Book Club. And I just really appreciate you listening to this episode and everything you do as far as reviews and listening and the feedback you guys give me. You're awesome. Much love. Keep crushing it in your business, and I will talk to you next week. Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media at Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.